Ever feel like the tech world is on, like, fast forward?
Yeah.
1 minute something's the hottest thing, and the next it's ancient history.
Yeah, definitely. It's tough to keep up.
Well, today we're tackling that feeling head on,
Yeah.
specifically for JavaScript fans out there, or maybe even you JavaScript skeptics.
It's a valid question, I think, for anyone working with or thinking about learning JavaScript because, the landscape shifts so rapidly.
Right, right. And our source material for this deep dive is an Algo Academy article. They're all about coding education and interview prep. So they've definitely got their fingers on the pulse of, like, what skills are in demand right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah. The article is called, Is JavaScript Losing Its Relevance in 2024? Catchy title, huh?
Oh, yeah. Gets right to the point. And it probably reflects what a lot of developers are wondering.
Exact. So that's our mission for this deep dive, to unpack JavaScript's journey. Like, how did it get so big? What are its strengths NRW not 5 years ago? And what serious challenges are up against it?
And ultimately, I guess, where does it fit into the future of web development?
Ooh, I like that. You're already looking ahead. But first, let's do a little history lesson. JavaScript wasn't always the powerhouse it is today. Remember the early days of the web? Static pages, limited interactivity.
Yeah. A far cry from, the rich, dynamic experiences we're all used to now.
Exactly. The Algo Academy article highlights how JavaScript, like, revolutionized the web. Remember those early frameworks?
Oh, yeah.
jQuery, Angular, React, Vue.js. I mean, each one was pushing the boundaries of what was possible, in the browser.
Each building upon what came before,
Sure.
iterating, innovating. And that's a crucial element of JavaScript's success, I think. It's that constant evolution.
Totally. And then came the real game changer, Node.js. Suddenly, JavaScript wasn't confined to the browser anymore. It was on the server side, too.
Huge moment.
Right, opening up this whole world of, like, full-stack development using a single language.
For developers, that was massive. Streamlined workflows, better collaboration. It meant you didn't have to constantly switch between different languages.
Yeah, a real efficiency boost. And that adaptability, that willingness to break free from the browser, that's got to be a big reason why JavaScript has stayed a top language for, like, almost 3 decades.
Few languages can claim that kind of staying power in such a fast-paced field.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so fast forward to 2024. JavaScript is still a dominant force, no question. The Stack Overflow Developer Survey, which the article mentions, by the way, confirms it's, like, one of the most used languages out there. But the real question is, why?
Why, with so many new technologies, so many, challenges appearing, why is JavaScript still so popular?
Let's break it down. And I think it starts with one word: ubiquity. JavaScript is supported by all modern web browsers. I mean, it's like the universal language of the web.
You write your code once and it runs basically everywhere. That's huge. That kind of cross-platform compatibility is invaluable.
It just works.
Yeah.
No need to worry about, like, different browsers or devices. And then, of course, there's that versatility we talked about earlier. Front end, back end, mobile, desktop. JavaScript does it all AL.
And it's got this massive ecosystem behind it. The NPM registry, JavaScript's package manager, has millions of packages. It's like this giant library of pre-built code ready to solve pretty much any problem you can think of.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you start a project. There's probably a package out there that already does what you need.
Exactly. And that saves developers a ton of time and effort.
For sure. But it's not just about the code, right? The JavaScript community is huge, GE, and incredibly active. That means there's this vast network of developers out there, constantly sharing knowledge, building tools, helping each other out.
That kind of community support is priceless, especially if you're new to the language. It's like having a global network of, mentors and collaborators all passionate about JavaScript.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got ubiquity, versatility, a rich ecosystem, and a supportive community. Any other reasons why JavaScript is still, like, top dog in 2024?
Well, we can't forget about the ongoing evolution of the language itself.
Yeah.
The ECMAScript specification, which, defines JavaScript, is constantly being updated with new features and improvements.
So it's not just sitting still. It's actively adapting to keep up with the demands of, like, modern web development.
Exactly. And I think that's key to understanding why JavaScript has managed to stay relevant for so long.
All right, so we've established that JavaScript has some serious strengths going for it. But, as you kind of hinted at earlier, it's not all smooth sailing.
True. No technology reigns supreme forever, right?
All right, so we're back to our JavaScript deep dive. And before the break, we were talking about all the good stuff, the ubiquity and versatility and this amazing community. But the tech world, it never sits still. So
Yeah.
what are some of the contenders, like shaking things up out there?
Yeah, that's true. No technology exists in a vacuum, right?
Hmm.
And JavaScript, despite its strengths, is facing some pretty serious competition from emerging technologies and just, shifting trends in general.
Right, right. Well, let's start with one that I know has been making some waves, WebAssembly, or WASM for short.
Yeah, WASM.
The article we're looking at describes it as like a way to run code that's written in other languages like C++ or
Mhm.
Rust. You can run that directly in the browser, and it's built for speed.
Right. And that's actually the key difference with WebAssembly. For anything performance heavy, especially if you're talking about complex calculations, things like that, WASM can really outperform JavaScript, like significantly.
Wow. Okay, so is this the end of the line for JavaScript then? Is it WASM gonna like totally steal its crown?
I wouldn't say that. It's more like think of it as a strategic partnership.
Yeah.
The article gives a good example. Like imagine a simple WASM module written in, say, C++. It could handle the really performance critical calculations, but then JavaScript would manage all the rest, like the user interface interactions or fetching the data, that kind of stuff.
Ah, I see. So it's not really about replacing JavaScript entirely. It's more like,
Yeah.
using the right tool for the job. Each one plays to its own strengths.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So WASM is one to watch, but it's not the only challenger out there making noise, right? What about TypeScript? I feel like that one has gained a lot of traction too, especially for bigger projects, more complex ones.
Oh, absolutely. TypeScript is a big one, especially like you said for those larger projects. It brings a lot more structure to JavaScript.
Right. Now, TypeScript, just for our listeners who might not be familiar with, it's essentially JavaScript, but with some extra features, some
Superpowers.
superpowers. There you go.
Oh,
I was going to say
cool.
superpowers.
Okay.
And specifically, we're talking about something called static typing. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So static typing basically means that you get to specify the types of data that your variables can hold. So like, is this going to be a number, a string, Boolean, that kind of thing. And it might seem like a small detail, but actually can make a really big difference in the quality of your code.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, for starters, static typing can catch errors much earlier in the development process, before they become these huge headaches later on.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it also just makes your code more readable. It's easier to understand, which is really important when you've got teams of people working on the same project.
Right. Of course.
Yeah, so it just brings a lot more discipline and structure to the whole process, which is, I think, why it's become so popular, especially for these larger projects. And the article actually has a little code snippet to illustrate there.
Oh, okay.
Like, imagine you define an interface for a user, right? And you say it needs properties like EAD and name and email. With TypeScript, it can actually enforce that any data you assign to a user variable has to fit that structure.
Ah, okay. So it's kind of like having a blueprint and it makes sure everything fits together properly.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Even with these, all these exciting things happening with WASM and TypeScript, JavaScript itself kind of has this paradox going on.
A paradox, huh? How so?
Well, remember that massive ecosystem we were talking about? The one with millions of packages and all that? Well, it can be a double-edged sword.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm listening.
For experienced developers, that sheer number of frameworks and libraries and tools out there, it can actually become overwhelming. Like, imagine trying to pick from dozens of options the perfect one for each little part of your project. It's like decision fatigue, analysis paralysis. It can really slow you down.
Yeah, I bet.
And then for newcomers, it can be really intimidating. When there's so much to learn, where do you even begin? So that's, I think, one of the challenges that the JavaScript community needs to kind of grapple with.
Right, right. Figure out how to manage all that that abundance. So, okay, we've got WASM potentially offering this like performance boost. We've got TypeScript bringing more structure to the party, and we've got the JavaScript ecosystem itself becoming, maybe a little unwieldy. Anything else? Any other challenges we should be aware of?
Well, there are still some lingering concerns about JavaScript's overall performance, especially compared to languages like C++ or Java, the compiled languages. And while JavaScript engines, they have gotten a lot faster in recent years, there are still certain scenarios where JavaScript can lag behind, especially computationally intensive tasks.
So there are times when the speed of JavaScript itself could become a bottleneck.
Potentially, yeah. And we also have to acknowledge the resurgence of native development for mobile and desktop apps. Languages like Swift for iOS, Kotlin for Android, and C# for Windows, they're gaining popularity again, and they offer some, potential advantages in terms of raw performance and user experience.
Right, right. So native development is making a comeback. And that's got to put some pressure on JavaScript's dominance in the cross-platform development world.
Hmm.
Hmm. It sounds like JavaScript is facing some pretty tough competition here
Yeah.
on multiple fronts. But I have a feeling this isn't the end of the story.
You're right to be optimistic. JavaScript is nothing if not resilient, and it's got this amazing ability to adapt. So in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore how JavaScript is, rising to the challenge, how it's evolving to meet these new demands head on, and how it's carving out this new role for itself in the ever-changing landscape of modern web development.
So we've spent this whole deep dive, trying to figure out, is JavaScript still relevant in 2024? We've seen its rise to fame. We've talked about its strengths, but we've also seen these challenges that it's facing.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I think looking at this Algo Academy article and just what's happening in the tech world right now, I think we can safely say that JavaScript is it's far from fading away.
Right. It's not going to become like a relic of the past or anything.
Not at all.
Instead, it's evolving, it's adapting. And in a lot of ways, I think it's actually becoming even more powerful, more versatile.
It's learning to coexist with those challengers we were talking about,
Right.
and even leverage them. Remember WebAssembly.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking of them as, competitors, developers are starting to use them together, Let each one do what it does best.
It's like a dynamic duo.
Exactly.
WASM handles the heavy lifting, the performance stuff, and then JavaScript manages the rest.
Yeah.
We get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And, even internally, JavaScript is constantly being refined, improved. All these new features that are being added to the ECMAScript specification, like async await and optional chaining, they're really making the language more, I think, expressive,
Yeah.
more efficient, and definitely more developer-friendly.
Yeah, we saw that code example in the article, showing how those features can make your JavaScript code just cleaner, easier to understand.
Right. And those performance concerns we talked about, well, the developers who work on JavaScript engines, they're not ignoring those. They're using things like just-in-time compilation JIT to make JavaScript run faster than ever.
So it's getting a speed boost from the inside while also learning to, play nice with technologies like WebAssembly.
Yeah.
That's cool. What about frameworks? Any cool innovations happening in that space?
Oh, tons. I mean, frameworks like React, Vue.js, Angular,
Right.
they're constantly evolving, always adding new features, improving performance. Like we were talking about React hooks before, how they give you this more elegant way to manage state and side effects.
Right, and the article even showed like a little code snippet showing hooks in action. It really made it clear how much they can simplify things when you're building stuff with React.
Totally. And then you've got Vue.js 3, they introduced this thing called the Composition API, which is like a totally new way to organize your code. It's more flexible, more powerful. You can really reuse a lot more code.
It's amazing to me how these frameworks just keep pushing the boundaries. They're not getting complacent.
Nope, they're always pushing forward. And there's another area where JavaScript is really playing a big role, and that's serverless computing and edge functions.
Ooh, yeah. Those are definitely buzzwords we hear a lot these days.
For good reason. These serverless platforms, they let developers deploy JavaScript functions that run on the edge, which basically means closer to the user. So you get faster load times, better responsiveness. The whole experience is just smoother.
So JavaScript is not just adapting to new technologies and trends. It's actually expanding into new territories. It's helping to shape the future of web development. But let's bring it back to you, the listener. What does all of this mean for you, whether you're a seasoned developer or just starting out?
Well, if you're already working with JavaScript, I'd say embrace this evolution. Dive in, explore the new features, play around with different frameworks, see what you can do with things like serverless computing. Just stay curious. Keep learning.
And if you're just starting out, don't let all this talk about JavaScript killers scare you off. JavaScript is still an incredibly valuable skill. It's a great language to learn. The community is huge. It's really supportive. And like we said, the language is constantly evolving. So there's always something new to learn.
Absolutely. Don't get bogged down in the hype cycles. Just focus on building a strong foundation, learn the core concepts, and then, explore the things that really interest you.
Well said. So to sum it all up, JavaScript is alive and well in 2024. It's facing some challenges, sure, but it's adapting, it's evolving, it's finding new ways to stay relevant, and even pushing the boundaries of what we can do on the web.
It really is an exciting time to be a part of the JavaScript ecosystem. Who knows what incredible things are going to come out in the next few years.
That's what makes it so fun. We've covered a lot of ground today. But this conversation doesn't have to end here. We encourage you to go check out that Algo Academy article that got us started. You'll find a link to it in the show notes.
And let us know what you think. Share your thoughts on the future of JavaScript with us on social media. What are you most excited about? What challenges do you think JavaScript needs to overcome? We'd love to hear from you.
Let's keep this conversation going. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of JavaScript. Until next time, happy coding.